So, Emerson, thank you so much for joining me today and giving me your time to have a chat about music from your own experience, and possibly maybe we'll find new ideas to explore together today. I'm very excited, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here. I love
Yeah, no,
talking about having these like creative conversations, and it's been a while actually because of what's been happening in the world. So it's nice to connect
exactly.
with more creatives.
Exactly, from across the field as well, because I'm a classical musician, trained classical musician,
Yes.
and you are in a different branch of music, but we'll get into
Yeah.
that in this podcast. Um,
Yes.
as you rightly mentioned, the past year has been a terrible time for everyone,
Mm.
not least just musicians, concerts being
Mm.
cancelled, musicians being stuck at home because of that. And how has lockdown, affected your productivity and creativity from your experience? Have you found that, being stuck at home has had a negative impact?
Yeah. I mean, I'll start by saying that like I'm one of the lucky ones in terms of like I was able to be at home and I could work from home, and my family were all able to work from home. So in that regard, like, um, the pandemic didn't impact me massively because I was able to stay home,
Yeah.
and do that. So that was all right. It's interesting because creatively, it like I've been able to be really creative because that's all I could really do. Right?
Mm.
I couldn't really put my time into anything else. Having just graduated as well, I say just, it's been a year, but I've just graduated, and it was like, it completely changed my year because I was supposed to stay in Sheffield where I did my degree. I was renting a house and was supposed to do all these music projects there that I was really excited for. And then the pandemic hit and I stayed home instead and have been creative in other ways, got back into songwriting, which kind of took a back seat while I was at uni. So yeah, creatively it's been interesting because it has just given me loads of time.
Mm.
Productivity wise, I don't know. Being stuck at home can, I feel like, kill productivity a little bit because you're in the same four walls, and it can be difficult. But I don't know. Obviously it's been terrible, but in the grand scheme of things, I think I've been doing okay, thankfully.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. What about you?
I think it has been quite difficult, but like you said, in the grand scheme of things, I've been quite lucky because, I've still got a sort of part-time job working at my parents' takeaway and trying to find time to practice. Got a concert coming up in August, which is quite exciting. But
Sick.
there are, I guess everyone's different. I guess some people saying what you said, being stuck at home, there's nothing else to do, so you can turn the attention to music. But then there are other people in saying that being outside and meeting people is what creates, what fuels productivity and creativity. This collaboration, this physical
Yeah.
collaboration. Is that something
Yeah.
that influences part of your musical experience too? Being outside.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've definitely missed just like working with people and collaborating with people and playing music with people, because that was kind of like such a huge part of my degree. That those 3 years was working with all these amazing musicians who are on my course and being inspired by them and being able to play music live. And so yeah, then having to completely cut that off and almost do all of it a little bit solo. There are ways to, I guess, like virtually collaborate with people, but it's not the same to me.
It's not the same. Not the same.
Yeah. So
there's this invisible. Sounds really really cringy to say, but there's this invisible force that connects you together when you're physically together, which internet and FaceTime doesn't really replicate well.
yeah,
And
100%.
yeah, it's this aura that you get with people. It's the same with just having conversations with people in person. But having said that, you're collaborating with your sister.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So that is one way, I guess, I've been able to continue collaborating. Is that I write music with my sister. We write a sort of, I don't know, I guess alternative pop, indie folk music, which has been a lot of fun and has kept me sane during the pandemic for sure. That because it's, you know, I put all my time into it pretty much. It's been going pretty well, and really kind of, it's like affirmed how much I love songwriting, I think. Because I went to uni to study music, obviously, but I didn't exactly know what area of music I wanted to be in. So I kind of took a pretty broad route and just kind of studied music. It's like everything I can do. And then as I was studying, figured out that I love, you know, drumming and composition. And then composition turned into songwriting, and songwriting has become this thing that I just, I love it. So
whose idea was it to start this duo? Was it your sister or yourself?
We'd kind of spoken about it for years, actually. We were like, we should start writing music, and you know, there was just, we never got round to it. So in that sense, the pandemic was like, it really gave us no other choice.
Right.
It's like, now we have to start writing music together. So yeah, it was kind of it just was a decision we made when I got home from uni. We were just like, yeah, let's just write stuff and see where it takes us. Yeah.
Were your musical styles quite similar to begin with, or did you have to compromise in some ways?
I think so. We do like a lot of the same music. We also do have very different tastes, but I think that is a good thing for this project, and it's a good thing about working with someone that you're so close to. Is, I think it's easier to like tell them if you don't like something or if you do like something, right? Sure. It's like we can be really open and be like, that doesn't work for this, or that really does work for this. So it just lets us really experiment with our sound and the influences that we have and what we want to bring to the music.
I think, when you're working in a very big group, it's always very, very important to be honest, I think, especially when it comes to musical expression, right? You want to be authentic. I guess that's where the hard thing lies. I just want to say, who were your inspirations for your sound? Who were you big fans of that influenced the way you write music?
Good question. I don't know. There's so many. I think, I mean, it's interesting because the project has changed over time. When we started, we were writing music, and for some reason in my head, I think it was like coming out of university, having been around all these, I don't know, like music is great to study at university, but I think it also can potentially be a little elitist, being in a very, just like, maybe that's not the right word. It's just very, there's a lot of complex music going on. Right. And when I came out of university and was writing this music, I was like, it has to be complex or it's not good in my head. And I was like, it has to be complex. Yeah, I was like, if it's not complex, people aren't going to like it. They're going to think, you know, why did he do 3 years of a music degree if he's writing simple music? So initially the music was like, it was pretty wild. There was a lot going on, but it wasn't working. Like, it just wasn't clicking. And then once we both settled into our influences and lent into all of our influences, it took shape more. So big influences for me were people like Phoebe Bridgers and Bon Iver. Who else can I draw on? Artists like Japanese Breakfast, and there's a band called Covet who I love, and they do some really interesting music. But then also drawing on all of the contemporary jazz stuff that I studied at university, and some of the folk stuff that I also studied. So it kind of all came together into this project.
Yeah. I just want to touch back on the sort of complexity side and trying to show people that your degree was justified, which I totally relate to that. I totally relate.
Yeah.
What do you mean by complex? Making music that sounds complex. Like, what characteristics in song or in composition that makes it complex?
Yeah, I think for me, I was thinking very much in terms of like harmony, and because I'd been studying a lot of jazz, I was like, jazz harmony, I have to use loads and loads of like just too many extended chords and and all of this, and just make it feel like too much. And I was like, oh, I'm a drummer, so I have to use time signatures, and I have to play with like quintuplets and all of these like complex rhythmic ideas, because I've been studying drums for 3 years at university. I've got to have all these things in there, and it just became this mess of complex ideas, where I guess I'd liken it to having, it's like I had my toolbox, right, full of different musical ideas or techniques, and I just threw it all
inside.
I was like, I'm gonna use everything.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that like you might have all the tools, all the chops, but when you're songwriting, you got to use the tools that service the song. So yeah, it was putting it weird. Yeah. Thank you. How about you? How was your experience with feeling like the complexity of being a music student and coming out of university with that?
Absolutely. I think when you tell people that you did a degree in music, especially piano performance, you feel obligated to perform very, very difficult pieces, very, very difficult repertoire. Because if you play simple stuff, it feels like people are gonna judge you for wasting so many years at university for playing something so simple, which is not the case, because sometimes, because the complexity of the piece can really obscure your technical drawbacks. Say, for example, if you play something with lots of notes and lots of different melodic lines over on top of each other, different harmonies, you got the pedal as well, all that can really shift the balance on technical ability and just complexity. Whereas if you play something very, very simple, I wouldn't say very, very simple, I would say Mozart, which is the layer of Mozart is very, I would say it's sparser compared to some other composers.
Yeah.
But this thin layer doesn't necessarily mean it's simple. It actually makes it harder, because you're so exposed, and musicians can tell if you're a bad pianist by just hearing how you play Mozart or Bach. Yeah. So knowing that, I tend to feel a lot better about playing simpler stuff, having told people that I studied music, but also doesn't detract me from wanting to play complex stuff. But you're absolutely right, though. As artists, we want to do a lot of things, but sometimes cramming everything into one thing is not particularly good. Logically speaking and musically speaking. And I just want to ask you a question. What other factors can help us decide what kind of, as you said, tools to service our music? So we have, maybe one of them is audience, who your audience is going to be.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ideas or influences that can help us decide?
Yeah, I think it also, for me, it depends on what exactly I'm doing. So when I'm drumming, or I'm playing a gig, I mean, first and foremost, for me, it's about fitting the music, right? So, like you say, that there are, I guess, likening it to classical piano, there are certain drummers or certain pieces that are, it's just full of chops, as many notes as you can fit in, just completely all over the kit. I mean, it sounds incredible, but it doesn't, that's not going to work for a pop gig or whatever. Stuff like that isn't gonna sit right. And so I think playing for the song and suiting the song and making sure that feels right. And then also, like you say, playing for the audience. So I was in the big band at University of Sheffield, big band, blah, blah, blah. I played drums. And there's one song, we did Sing, Sing, Sing at the end of every set. And it's basically just like a 5-minute drum solo. And that's the song where you can really just you just go for it, Yeah. It was really intimidating the first time I had to play it live, because there's a bit where basically everyone just drops out. So the entire band just stares at you. And they're like, play something cool. You can just see it. Like, play something cool, dude. You have to play something cool. I'm like, oh, shit, I don't know what I'm doing. But also you're playing for the audience there, because they've been, it's for them to dance, and you want to, it's okay to show off there and have a bit of fun with it. So, yeah, I think that is definitely something to draw on. But I also think that for me, when I'm songwriting, something I've learned is that I don't want to write it for anybody else. Actually, the songwriting stuff, I want to write it for me. Because otherwise, I found that I was just worrying. I was like, maybe I should add this because someone might like this, or maybe this, this genre of music I'm writing, it has to sound like this, so I should write it like this. But it didn't. Yeah, thinking like that for me took me off of the right path for the music. And when I remembered, actually, I need to write this for me, and first and foremost, write something that I love, and not really think about who might be listening to it, I ended up with better music. So yeah, I don't know. I'd say that.
I've always find that is such a tricky dilemma for creatives, I think, especially when you have, say, quite a big fan base. Do you write music for your audience, or do you write music for yourself, or is there like a very complicated balance between the two? And as you said, when you have lots of people you have to think about, and you're thinking about, okay, if I do this, would they like this? And if this person likes this, should I do this? And then you have this sort of this Frankenstein of different ideas coming together, ideas that you're trying to please your fans. It's just that in the final product, you have something that's not really yours.
Yeah.
So do you think that's a risk to take, to create something that is authentically you, at the risk of annoying fans that you're not doing it this way? Do you think that's a worthwhile risk?
Yeah, I think it is. Because I don't know, because then I feel like the music stays sincere, right? It stays authentic, if you want to call it authentic. I think if you write for you, I don't know, is it worth it? Like you say, is it worth writing something that maybe you don't love as much to appease fans? But I also think that no matter what you release, there are going to be some people who love it, and there are going to be some people who don't love it. And I think that staying true to what you love is always, for me, I feel like it's the best way forwards, because I don't know, because there are going to be people who love it, and in that case keep doing what you're doing, and there are going to be people who don't love it, and I feel like listening to those voices is would just confuse me. At least I'd be like, oh, maybe I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do that, and I start thinking of all these things that I'm doing wrong, when actually I don't think there is like there's nothing wrong you can do in writing a song, right? It's all the right decision as long as it makes sense to you, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I had a question actually about classical piano, because I mentioned that like playing live, I would make choices as a drummer for the audience, but often I'm entirely improvising almost everything that I'm doing. So those choices they come out different every time.
Sure.
But if you're playing like a repertoire for this audience who have come to see a certain repertoire, how do you make do you make creative changes while you're playing? Like, are there certain times where you think, oh, I want to play this passage like this, or are you like, maybe I shouldn't because they've come to see it played like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's a fantastic question, and it's a question that I love asking other musicians as well, especially when it comes to with classical music. Everything is so predetermined sometimes, and I'm not saying there aren't moments of inspiration, but the majority of a pianist's time is trying to think about how to express something musically as close to the composer's intentions. But to answer your question, yeah, there are some moments of inspiration. I'll give an example. I think it has more to do with the sound of your playing rather than the musical expression. So say for instance that you go to a concert hall that you never played before. You have no idea what the acoustics sound like. You have no idea how big it is. You have no idea what piano you're playing. So when you get to the concert hall and you see these things for the first time, the musician has to make very, very quick judgments on how to sort of resettle their interpretation into that environment.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're used to playing in very small halls and then suddenly you're in a very big hall, when you get accustomed to playing in small halls, your body is accustomed to the physicality of the small hall, so you play a bit quieter because you're accustomed to the small hall. But when you're in a big hall, you really have to change your physicality and the way you interact with the piano to make sure the sound is projected as far back, so the person at the very back can hear you. And this takes a lot of experience and a lot of very, very quick acoustical judgments to do that.
Yeah.
Some people are even crazier. I've never heard this done before, but there's a very famous Polish pianist called Christian Zimmerman, and there was an interview he did with, I think it was BBC. He said that he would use different kinds of fingering depending on the hall.
Wow.
So he would play the same thing, but he would have different variations of different fingers he would use depending on the hall. So these are just insane stories about quick musical judgments that people make, and I just it doesn't surprise me because Zimmerman is just absolutely a genius when it comes to music. But is there something quite similar in when you're playing with a band, for instance? Is there these collective judgments that you make that you decide beforehand?
I think so. I think it will depend on, like you say, venue is important, but I think, I guess we do take into account acoustics, but often it's like the audience. So, like whether we're there to like be the main attraction for the audience, right? So they come to see us and they want to dance, or if it's just background stuff, right? And then obviously you have to make a decision. You have to really just settle in to the background. Whereas when you're gigging for people, everything's fair game. Go wild. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's amazing. Classical pianists or classical musicians in general, because you have this set repertoire that people know. People who come to see the performance, they know this music, they know what it sounds like, what they think it's supposed to sound like, and then we'll take away what the performers their interpretation of the music. Whereas a lot of the gigs I play, it's just it's up for interpretation, I think, or it's highly improvised. So
yes,
I think there are times where people come and expect a certain song played in a certain way, but I think I find it easier knowing that I can play almost whatever I want and I'll be okay, So yeah,
I think that's one of the sort of general distinctions is that anything other than classical, they're more forgiving if you're not as faithful to the original.
Yeah.
Because in classical music, you could be crucified if you just deviate slightly from the score. And you mentioned that there are people who come to gigs expecting a song to be played a certain way. Does that happen quite often?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it will also depend on the type of music, I guess. I think I don't know, like say you've come to like a guitar clinic and you're watching like a virtuoso guitar player. I think then you would get people in the audience who not to generalize, but they might be like, some of them maybe came to hear it played a certain way. But I think in the music that I tend to play, that's not too much the case. I think it would mostly happen in a jazz setting, definitely, but rarely. Yeah.
What kind of a concert goer are you? Are you sort of open-minded person that accepts all different kinds of interpretation, no matter how wrong it is? Sometimes, in case you think
how wrong it is, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Even if it's wrong, I would accept it. No. I don't think it could be wrong unless they it just like, unless you have to start over. But then again, maybe that's not wrong. Maybe that's just that had to happen for the show. But yeah, I'm pretty open. I think I just like to see people playing and enjoying themselves, and I like hearing how people interpret different things and what feels sincere to them when they play the piece. And that's a good feeling, I think.
Yeah.
What about you? You very
I tend to be quite open-minded when it comes to interpretation. I don't really like things when they're too conservative. Things are not done in an experimental way, because sometimes these experimental things can be really groundbreaking, and we need that in classical music. We need that.
Yeah.
I feel like things are too stuck in tradition, and I might be wrong about this, but we're not doing enough to modernize the genre, I think. And I think that's why people turn away from it a lot. And they go more towards going to concerts and like rock concerts and pop concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
So we need to desperately find a way to do that. But I think I'm quite open-minded, because there are some times where very famous pop songs can be covered by very smaller known artists, lesser known artists, and they tend to be better than the original. I have to say, some of these people do amazing covers, and I tend to listen to them more than the original, to be honest. Do you do the same? Do you find people who do covers much better than the original song?
Yeah, I think it can depend. I think that I love hearing people's interpretation of another song, especially when it's like so different from the original. So, for example, there's a Charlie XCX song called Claws, and she's like very like hyper pop. There's like loads of electronic production in there, and I love that song, and it sounds incredible. And then another band that I love did a cover of it. That band's called FORTE, and they you know, it was like acoustic guitars and more of like a Midwest emo vibe, indie stuff. And I remember I had to listen to the song twice because I was like, wait, this is a cover of something? Like, I've heard this. What is this song? And then it clicked, and just hearing how they managed to take this song and make it their own, I think was amazing. And again, it's like live lounges, I guess, you know, BBC Radio 1 live lounge or whatever. I think the most interesting live lounge performances are when a band takes a song and makes it theirs. You know, so it's not
Yes.
like oh, this just sounds like the same song being
Right.
played by somebody else. It's like, oh, they've really thought about this and taken the elements of this song and turned it into something that is sincere to them.
So it's not like a complete replication. It's a real, like, an interpretation in their own style.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, it's especially when they use different instruments and they completely change it into different styles. Say it went from pop to jazz, and it still works. It's still convincing in some ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but how do you choose your songs you want to cover? Are you quite considerate as to what songs you should cover?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's a couple different ways. So I think definitely like the main way is just like, if I love a song, we'll cover a song. And then also when it comes to like posting on social media and stuff, I'll often just pick a song that is like easy and easy to do and get out, because I think that, I don't know, with social media sometimes you just want to be putting that content out and playing songs that suit the way you sound or suit sort of the environment that you have. So, you know, with me and my sister, we post a lot of covers that's just guitar and singing, because that's what we have here and it's easy to do. So it's choosing songs that suit that well. But then I also think with social media, and TikTok in particular, there's like method, right, to picking the song. It's like, oh, what's trending, what's going viral, like what can get us attention or whatever. So, and I think the way that TikTok has just like come in and impacted the music industry has been like ridiculous. And so having to make those decisions based off of like what's trending is really strange. I'm not sure whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. I think it's fine either way. There's definitely been like a learning curve, but just deciding to play music that maybe I don't love, but I can, maybe this contradicts what I said earlier, where I was like, I just want to do it all for myself, but I can put that aside for a TikTok, I think. Something like that.
Yes. There's two things I just want to ask you from that. First of all, being a musician in the modern day with this like TikTok and other social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook, how much, like ratio wise, how much time do you devote to social media, planning for social media and actually creating songs? Is it, say, maybe 40-60 or 50-50?
Good question. I think it also, so currently I'd say it's probably, there's not too much time thinking about social media right now, because at least the stage of, so me and my sister are writing an EP at the moment, and we're getting ready to hopefully release that in autumn. And so that's like the main focus right now. So that's sort of come up in priority, and social media is still there. We want to post at least once a week, you know, make sure things are going on, but it's down at like 20-30%, I'd say. But I think that once we have, you know, maybe the songs are mixed and we're just thinking about like promotional things, then it will definitely come up. I think, yeah, I'm not sure what the right amount is, or if there is a right amount. I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but it's like, I do think it's very important these days, because I think especially with TikTok, it can just, one viral video leads to another, and it has such a huge impact now. I mean, even like, did you see that there was that like Backyardigans song that went viral on TikTok? It's like this kids TV show. It's like a 12-year-old song. Right. It's like this bossa nova song, sung by little kids, and it went viral, and then it hit like top of the charts or something. And it's just like this 12-year-old kid song, all because of TikTok, got so much popularity. It's just, it's changed the game, I think, definitely.
I think for aspiring new musicians, it's such a helpful tool. I think, and I think it's very foolish not to use it to your advantage. So I think it's a good idea. And also because TikTok clips are very, very short in general, and there's automatic replays, right? It just, if you leave it on, it just replays and replays and replays, and you can just watch it over and over again. So I think that's another advantage for, if you pick a very good excerpt of your tracks, I think it can gain quite a lot of traction and attention. So
yeah, definitely.
I think that's my opinion. I think musicians who don't use it are sort of gonna be like dinosaurs.
yeah, you kind of gotta keep up, right?
You gotta keep up. I mean, it's foolish not to. I mean, you see it a lot in the classical world. There's lots of pianists using it to either give performances, practice sessions that they do, and just to give tips and advice. Skits. I've seen a lot of skits these days in the classical music industry. That's quite funny. Lots of memes. And it's nice to see. It's nice to see because TikTok is very a youthful app, right? Lots of young people use it, and it's nice to see classical music being engaged by lots of young people.
Yeah, for sure.
That's always a good sign.
I think it lets. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No. Carry on.
Yeah, I just think with classical music, at least, it broadens it for young people. I think I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think maybe like entry into classical music can be fairly intimidating for a newcomer.
Absolutely.
Because where do you start? Like, what do you listen to first? Like, how do you get into classical music? I think with something like TikTok, it's just almost there to maybe guide you slightly into this area of music that maybe was too intimidating to listen to beforehand.
Exactly. Yeah. And the humor as well in the skits, I think can really attract for younger people who don't know much about it to see. It's not all serious. So we're not all in our tuxedos and wearing our monocles and no, it's fun. It's fun. Can you tell us more about so you have a manager, right? A management team. Can you tell us the story of how that came to be?
Yeah, so that actually happened basically because of TikTok.
See, there you are.
Surprise. Surprise. TikTok is the way forward. So it was I don't know when it happened, but it was definitely last year, sort of, when the first lockdown hit. My sister just was posting to TikTok, posting singing videos, and we'd started writing, and it was kind of like bubbling away. We were getting into it, and her singing video got noticed by the people who are now our management, and also this like producer duo called Future Cut, and they like invited us into their studio just to have a chat and talk about things, and ended up setting us like homework. They were like, write one song a week, send it to us, we'll give you feedback. And I think in hindsight it was like a test. It was like, okay, like we feel like, you know, they obviously want to be writing music, but can they keep up? Can they write one song a week and consistently? So we just cracked down. Like, it was all I was doing. I was just like constantly writing music. I was like, we've got to write 1 a week, 2 a week. You know, I was like, as many songs a week as we can, write it all. So yeah, we did that for it's been over a year now since we've been doing that. 1 song a week, and they have kind of become like mentors to us. Super helpful, and it honestly, it's sort of like streamlined the process of songwriting. Like, I think we got to a point where we're fairly proficient at songwriting now, and we got there quicker than we would have if we hadn't had like that homework to do, because it really just focused us on a goal, and which I think also was really helpful considering the pandemic. You know, if I hadn't have had this goal every week, who knows where I would have been. But yeah, so yeah, that was that, and it wasn't until like the start of 2021 where we really began to find our sound, and that's when we kind of got back in touch with management. We'd been having conversations on and off throughout the process, and we sent them some more songs that we were like, we're really pleased with these, and then it was like, yeah, okay, let's have a meeting, let's see if this can go somewhere. And then we like made the artist manager relationship official, and it's been like so much more helpful than I ever could have imagined. Yeah, I feel really fortunate. Thanks, TikTok.
Well, many congratulations. That's a huge
Thank you.
Huge achievement. How long did that 1 a week, writing a song 1 a week, last for?
Ages. Dude, when did we start? We must have started June or July last year.
Okay.
And then we spent, so let's say July. Yeah, there was like 6 months of that consistently, and then we got to the new year and we finally started writing good music. Well, good music. I don't know.
Those initial songs weren't so you never used any of the material from those songs to for your EP. You never used.
Oh
any
no, those
really?
early songs will never be heard. Maybe I think like ideas from those can definitely come back, but those initial however many songs a week, those were not. We're not using those.
What can I ask? What did you think was so bad with it?
I don't think it was necessarily bad. I think that. Well, I think part of it was the complexity thing I spoke to you about earlier, where I was just like throwing everything in. I was like, yeah, why not add this too? Like, let's make it as complex as possible.
Right.
Turns out I didn't need to. And then also writing. Again, I mentioned earlier, writing music for us and what we like. And I think at the beginning, I was second guessing myself. I was like, what will they like? What will these producers who are mentoring us like? You know, what can we write that they would like? And that didn't lead to music that was authentic or sincere to us. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. But I think we needed that time. I think we needed all of those songs that aren't great to have got us to where we are now. You know, that whole just like getting into a routine of writing music every day, like finishing a song. You know, because I think it's so easy to start and then be like, you know, you never get to the end of it. Whereas this, it was like, no, we have to finish a song each week. Like, doesn't matter what the end product is, it has to be done.
Yeah.
So that was. So yeah, those initial songs were more of like I don't know. It was like very intense practice.
That's so interesting that you mentioned that, because it's such a coincidence. I was just watching an interview with Andrei Schiff, who's a Hungarian pianist, very famous and amazing pianist. He was being interviewed by James Madison Cox, who's a horn. Oh, I think it's a horn player. Doesn't matter. And
cool.
He was talking about I think he was talking about what makes a composition good, and he was in reference to Beethoven and Schubert and stuff like that. And Andre Schiff said, sometimes you can't wait for things to feel good to write. You have to write every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of what you produce will be terrible, absolutely terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But there'll be one day it will be good.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, and he was emphasizing that you can't wait for a day to feel like you have to write, to feel like you're going to write. You have to write every day, no matter what you feel like.
Yeah.
So it's this discipline that increases the chance of success. And I think I'm still trying to learn that. And
Mm-hmm.
do you think that was the test? That was this consistency of writing a song a week to get into the discipline to create better songs in the future?
Definitely. I think it's so important that you do it every day, or at least try to do it every day. Sit down, even if it's just 10 minutes, writing every day, because it is really hard to start, because I think often as well, when you like sit down, suddenly there's like imposter syndrome and you're like, I'm no good at this, everything I'm writing is rubbish, what am I doing? You've got to be able to like, you've got to be able to silence those voices, and be like, no, I'm just gonna write and not judge myself for what I'm writing, and kind of like just let it happen. Maybe I'll write a full song today, or maybe I'll write 2 bars. But it's just getting into that routine of trying to write something every day that I found really helpful, and is actually the thing that, like, the thing I enjoy most at the moment is writing new music. I love it. I love sitting down and just like coming, 2 hours later I've got something. It's like magic, I love it.
This might seem like a bit of an abstract question, but when you have a musical idea, no matter how small it is, and you're stuck and you don't know how to move past it, have you had that experience before?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What's your own opinion on getting out of it, finding a way out?
Yeah, good question.
What tactics or strategies do you use to move past this whole?
I mean, sometimes I'll just leave it, right? I'll be like, this isn't working. I'll put it aside and save it for another day, and I'll start with something new. But sometimes, I think if you're like dedicated to like, I'm gonna make this idea work, I don't know. I find experimenting on different instruments or with different sounds is a good way of doing it. Like if I write something on piano and it's not going anywhere, and I'm just like stuck playing this like 2-bar loop, and I'm like, I like this, but I don't know what to do with it. I'll probably just go to another instrument, to be honest, and try and like get some inspiration elsewhere.
That's so interesting. Oh, so you play at the same idea on a different instrument, and you will inspire new ideas to go on.
Often. That's
so interesting.
Yeah, because I find that so I started playing piano. Piano was like my first instrument, I guess. Like I did all my grades and whatever, so I think when I think about music, at least in terms of harmony or melody, I think about piano. But guitar, I'm completely self-taught, so I approach the instrument so differently. I often don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just sort of there, and I'm like, okay, what sounds nice on this instrument? What shapes am I making? And so coming off of the piano and going onto the guitar is such a it opens up so many different possibilities for me, because it's just a completely different way of it's a different instrument. I play it differently. The sound is different. I think timbre and tone make a huge difference to what I want to write. Something that I write on the piano and then take to the guitar can often sound a little folkier, or have these certain elements that I didn't hear when I'm playing it on piano. And if I play it on another instrument, I'm like, oh, now I hear this. Where can I take this? And then maybe I'll bring it back to the piano, and I've got all these new ideas, and it will start generating more.
That's incredibly insightful. Thank you so much.
No worries.
That's I mean, there are connotations to instruments, aren't there?
Mm.
Like piano can have all these complex harmonies, and having done musical theory and listened to piano music, your brain automatically thinks that it has to go this certain way.
Mm.
And then when you have an idea that's not similar to the current repertoire, it's actually quite hard to move past that, because there's no previous examples to rely on.
Yeah.
And I think your strategy is really good, because it takes it out of context and it puts it in another context, and it just sparks up even more inspiration. And you said you don't even carry on with that different instrument. You take it back to the original instrument that you want to write it for, and you carry on in that way. Would that be a fair summarization?
It would definitely depend. Like, I do love bringing it back and seeing what I can do with it. But also, if it just like feels so right on another instrument, then it can stay on the other instrument. And then often I'll be like, so yeah, say for example, I've written it on piano. It's not working. I take it to the guitar. It feels good. I'll hear something else on the piano that can be played instead, right? So I still bring that. For me, that's kind of like, I love using both piano and guitar in my music. Just feels really warm, and so approaching, having a different piano idea come from playing something on the guitar is good. But I also think that creativity and songwriting is so like elusive. There's never one way of doing it. It's just oftentimes it's trial and error and fighting imposter syndrome while you go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that insight. It's really helpful. I'm sure people will find that helpful too.
I hope so.
So we'll wrap up the episode in a moment.
Sure.
I know a lot of pianist friends of mine have habits that they do that are not particularly helpful to their musical expression.
Mm-hmm.
For example, bad posture, or maybe the way they hit the keys aren't right, or their pedaling isn't right. Something that hinders their musical expression that they're trying to work on. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything similar? Any habits that you found yourself doing over the years that you're trying to correct to make sure that your musical expression isn't hindered in any way?
Yeah, I think that definitely when it comes to drums, because I mean, drum kit is the instrument that I'm like most proficient at, and so I know when I'm doing things wrong more on it. So like you say, posture is a big one for me, and it was regularly in my lessons. I'd be struggling with with a passage or whatever, and my teacher would just be like, just sit up and breathe, and then I played it perfectly. And it was such a, it took me a while to realize how important posture is to playing, and how important breathing is to playing, and how important warming up is, especially for me with my wrists as a drummer. It's really important. I imagine for piano as well, actually. Just like taking care of your body, I think, is something that I didn't do when I was younger. I'm still, I'm 22.
You're still incredibly young.
Yeah, but when I was a kid, I just like, I could just play whatever. But I think it's important to do that. And then, with drums, it's all technique that I notice that I'm lacking.
Anything in particular? Any specific technique?
I'd say my left hand on kit is definitely weaker than my right. In terms of, it's almost like the motion I make with my left hand is usually quite big, which means I can't play things as fast or as nuanced. And so in comparison to my right hand, which is very tight and can move very quickly, my left hand lags behind, and I really feel it, and I know what I'm doing wrong, because when I look at my hands, I can tell, like, this needs to be, I don't need to open my hands so wide when I'm playing. I need to keep my fingers closer to the stick. I need to, reduce my wrist movement and keep my sort of my shoulders back and my elbows in place. And I know I'm doing all these things, but when at uni, I was like, I could get by doing it. I was learning the pieces fine, and so I kind of put it to the side, and I was like, I'll approach technique later, which maybe wasn't the best decision. So my technique's okay, but they're definitely my left hand, and also when I'm playing the kick drum, like double pedaling it, I didn't learn that technique until quite late into drumming, which took it was difficult, and I also know that it's not great, and I just need to spend time doing it. Like, I know the only way to improve doing it is just to sit and work on it, and I need to do that. I have no excuse. I just need to sit down and practice.
Does it?
But I think,
Does it frustrate you, these shortcomings, technical shortcomings?
Definitely, it can do. I think particularly because I've recently started recording myself when I play as well, which is another thing that I definitely should have done earlier. I think it's really important to be able to listen back to what you've been playing and figure out what went right or what went wrong and what you can improve next time. And it's just like, when I listen back, I can hear all these mistakes that I'm making, and it's frustrating to know that it's just technique, It's like, if I was a bit faster, a bit smoother, it would be there. So
what was it like the first time you listened to yourself back?
Horrible. To yourself. I listened to like 2 seconds of Turn It Off. I was like, no, I can't do that. I don't sound like that. I refuse. But it's good. I think it's important to be able to do that. It makes you a better player, but it's also, I don't know. Do you record yourself when you play, when you practice?
I do. I had the same reaction as you. I think the first time I ever heard myself play, it was so different to what I was listening to in real time.
Yeah.
It was nothing like that. It was like a different person playing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I know. And I just thought, oh my God, this is terrible. What am I gonna do if I sound like this? I don't even trust myself anymore, because what I'm listening to isn't what was on the recording. Yeah. But then how do you know that you're doing the right thing if it's different?
Exactly.
But then again, I think the strategy is, the more you do it and the more alterations you make over the years, you can start to judge things a bit easier, I think. So if I do this, then I know it's going to sound like this to the other person. So I think you almost have to have this sixth sense, in a way, to quickly alter in your mind. If I do this, it's going to sound like this, okay, and then shift everything in that context. But yeah, I agree, it's very helpful to know where you're going wrong. Sometimes you can fool yourself, you think that you're doing a crescendo or you're playing this rhythm right, but then when you record yourself, you're doing it absolutely wrong. It's a revelation that needs to be made, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You can catch your habits as well. It's things that maybe you don't even know that's happening. You're like, why do I play it like that every single time? It's like, I don't hear that when I'm playing it. Exactly. But when I listen back, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So, and my posture. Why is my posture like that? God, gotta sit up more.
Yeah. Is that one of your habits that you're trying to improve on?
Yeah. And also how my fingers look on the keys. Because many professional pianists, their fingers look very curved and they look very relaxed. And when I watch myself play, I just think, why am I not like that? Why are my fingers not, they don't look natural on the keys. Yeah. And so I get very, very conscious and I try to correct myself. Do you do that when you're drumming, when you see professional drummers and you compare it to yourself? Do you have this sort of negative comparisons that you have?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's you've got to be careful when you're definitely comparing yourself to professional musicians that you're not, that we're not professionals, whatever, but people who are very highly regarded in the field.
Yes.
It's so easy to compare yourself, but like, you're watching them for a reason. They're like the best of the best, and so of course they're going to look. It's going to be almost immaculate. So yeah, it's a struggle, but it also helps. I think I often find myself, even at gigs these days, just staring at the drummer's hand. Like I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
How can I play like that? So yeah, and the piano thing, dude, I'm so self-conscious about it, because I'm not a pianist, but I play a lot of piano in the music I write, and I just like, what if a real pianist comes to a gig and sees my hands like this on the keys, you know? And then it's like,
I promise, if I come to your gig, I won't do that. I won't do that. I promise.
it.
I promise.
I appreciate it.
You know, we're both graduated musicians, and I've been reflecting a lot on the time as a student at my institution, and I've been thinking about the times where I should have done this, or I should have asked this. It might have changed the way I thought about music.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you regret not asking during your time at university, or not doing, that you wish you had done?
I think, yeah, there's definitely not doing, something I regret not doing is we had like an Indian classical music specialist at our university, and he was incredible, and he offered like free tabla lessons every week, and I went to a few, but I just, looking back, I'm like, why didn't I go to every single free lesson that I could have gotten? It's such a stupid decision to be like, nah, I don't need it. Like, what? Why was I making that decision in first year? Yeah, I wish I had gone and learned tabla for 3 years, because I think it would have, you know, even if I don't go on to become a professional tabla player, I think it would have just opened up a lot more avenues in my writing and my playing in particular on the drums, and also having a better knowledge of Indian classical music and being able to draw on that would have been really helpful. So if I could go back, I would do that. But also I think I was like super focused on the academic side of the studies when I was there. I was like, you know, my schedule was packed. I'd get up early, I'd go to the library or the music department, I'd stay there all day, and I'd come back, which was great for me. You know, I did well, but I wish I had also spent more time playing music in the city and playing live and joining rehearsals and things like that I missed out on because I was so heavily focused on the academic side of it. And you know, I don't think it's a bad thing that I was focused on the academics. You know, I just wish there was more time in the day, I guess. But I think if I'd let myself have a bit more of a balance, so yeah, not necessarily that I missed out asking anything, just that where my priorities lay while I was at university. Yeah. What about you? Anything that you would go back and ask?
I think the same thing. Not necessarily asked, but I think done. Probably practice more. I wish I practiced.
Yeah.
Because when you graduate as a pianist, you lose out on playing on grand pianos a lot every day.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd taken advantage of that. Participating in concerts. Yeah, I wish we would host extracurricular performances every week, and I wish I could have taken more part in that, being a bigger contributor in that.
Yeah.
I just wish I got to know the teachers more, the instrumental teachers, because it's encouraged but not mandatory. You can sit in on other people's lessons.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was a done thing at university, at your university.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah. And not a lot of people did it actually in my college. I did once actually, and it's very, very insightful. I wish I did more of that. Especially when people were playing the same repertoire as you. It's nice to see what other teachers are saying about the same thing.
Definitely.
I really regret not doing that enough.
Yeah, I'd agree. You got to make the most out of however much you pay for that experience, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. But yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree.
And as musicians, as we both are, we need these connections. So the more connections we make, the better our lives will be.
Exactly. I definitely took for granted like having so many amazing musicians around me, because they're all still in Sheffield, you know. So I'm like, I miss being able to play with these people just like daily. You know, if I wanted to, we'd all be around the university and could just play. Definitely took that for granted.
Well, Emerson, thank you so much.
Thank you.